Blessings, peace and blessings to everybody. What's going on this good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen? All right, so we about to get into a couple of things. Remember I told you in my last video we were gonna go over the tax forms, right? We're gonna go over the administrative process. We're gonna get into the administrative process, which I think is really important. But before I get into that, I'm just gonna get into a couple of other things right now. And then we're gonna see where we go from there. You know what I'm saying? Just to recap, we was talking about the location of a debtor. We went over the definition of person. Okay. We talked about how person was defined and almost identically in each of the codes that each of this federal statutory codes that we looked at. And we come to realize that, excuse me. My son was getting ready to tear it up. So we come to realize that so we come to realize that 42 they define in person and they're not defined in person, excuse me. In 42 they not defined in person and they're using tenant and landlord, which in positive law in Title 10, they're clearly defining it. You know what I'm saying? We all know Article 2 is military. You understand what I'm saying? It's a military jurisdiction underneath the Scottish rule 42 versus 48, which would be the Scottish rule for appeals and for equitable claims and things of that nature. So I briefly wanted to tap on that. We also talked in the last video, we also talked about what was the last part that we talked about? We talked about the location of a debtor, and that is what's extremely critical to really understand. Remember that I said that your zip code, your address is an account. It's a portfolio that when the IRS has the address and they look into that file, I'm almost positive that they can see that, you know what I'm saying? And many different other agencies can see that individuals and persons that had lived at that location that's affiliated with the Social Security, that's affiliated with the mail service, that's affiliated with bills that's attached to that particular location, which they operate in commerce. So when you give your address out, it's treated as a commercial account, and you're offering, when you give your address out, you're offering to do business, whether you know that or not. You know what I'm saying? So when the IRS look up that Social Security, they may have an address, and the address is an account. You understand? So they can match things together. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's very critical to understand that the principal place of business for the principal debtor and its principal place of business is the District of Columbia. And we need to learn how to implement that and stand on that so that when we're acting as the agent, we want to let them know that the principal place of business is the District of Columbia. So this is where we're doing business. So if you think about it, if you use your address in the incorrect way, you have gave up your privacy and you have allowed the territories to make an attachment to your account, which is your residency, and which ties to the people have your residency, they damn near have the social, your location, you know, and things of that nature. So the zip codes, the federal zones are used like accounts. Okay, so just basically look at them like accounts. We're gonna first, before I go into the taxes, okay, we're gonna go over a document that I created. We're not gonna talk so much about the process. We're not gonna talk about passports. We're not gonna talk about, you know, a Minnesota Rule 220. We're not. Oh, excuse me. We're not gonna talk about the claim of life or anything of that nature. We're not going to talk about the UCC one, but the UCC one is relevant when it comes to these particular tax forms. You will need a non-commercial, uniform commercial claim that you want to give to the IRS when it comes to these particular tax forms so that they know that you have some sort of equitable claim. You don't necessarily need this UCC one. This stuff has been done without it because that is the commercial portion of it, and it's and then there's an equitable portion of it. The UCC preserves the equitable portion of it, and then it preserves the at law, the statutory portion of it, where you can lawfully publicly file your UCC, and it's good, but it's a equitable claim at law. It's a lien, but it is not equity, exclusive equity itself. So it's vital to understand. We need to understand that. We need to understand that these zip codes and these addresses are the location of the debtor. The location of the debtor is the District of Columbia. You may not, the registered organization may not literally be in the District of Columbia. However, if you're doing business with a car dealership or you're doing business with a credit card company, those are registered organizations with the Secretary of State. And that's what it also was talking about for debtors that's registered in the state where the principal place of business, because when you file with the Secretary of State, you're doing business, your nonprofit is public information. So that's an organization registered in the state, just like the birth certificate. And as I read it, I realized in the last video that it also talked about foreign governments as relating to registered organizations, and it spoke on trust. And if we look at the Social Security Administration, we know that that's a private trust. Okay, so that private trust also gave its form of its registered organization document, which is the Social Security as well. So if you really, really read it, they really cover the Social Security and the birth certificate. They typically do that when they're covering, but they don't, it's crazy. So let's just move forward. So we went over form 23, 231. Remember I talked about that? Obligations, checks drawn on the United States Treasury, obligations of the United States, giving the undersigned, giving the power, some form of POA to the Internal Revenue Service director so that they can go ahead and endorse, exchange, and things of that nature for you. So, and I gave you the address for that form. That is one of the 8 forms that you will need. Okay, we're not gonna go over the birth certificate or the certificate of live birth. If you have some questions on the authenticating birth certificate, certificate of live birth, the difference between the birth certificate, the bond itself and the estate itself, that's what that's really about. If you're wondering why you have a long form and a short form, okay. And I talked a little bit about the relevancy of the name decree and how it relates to Title 18, 1028, when they're telling you that the birth certificate was never intended for identity. In the absence of a nationality card, these 3 non-federal identification cards are what's going to determine your nationality. Now, the name decree is extremely powerful because when it comes to commerce, he who creates that is a true owner. So when you create something, you really own it. So when you create a form of a degree, it's almost undisputable. You understand what I'm saying, guys? So these are a few things that you would need. You know what I'm saying? When we're gonna get into this stuff, but I'm gonna make sure that the people are following and staying in tune and really rocking. And we're not gonna just cater to one particular group. We're not gonna cater to people who just have money. We're not going to cater to people that's just seeming appealing. We're really doing God's work. So we're going to start from the bottom and we're going to build a foundation. So we have some history. So I have some history and catalog that when it's new people come into this information, that we don't leave them out, because it's a lot of that going on. It's a lot of frustration. A lot of people, when they start to beat their cases and and they get on their pedestal. They're charging the crazy prices, and they're leaving a lot of people out, not answering a lot of people's questions. And this is not, I don't run that type of party. I'm not that, we don't do that over here. So okay, you got your, and then we'll get into the TDA accounts. We got the routing number, all the routing numbers are the same. You get your account number, individual account number, or you can have your estate. You know what I'm saying? If you get locked out, you gotta call. Talk to them. It ain't as scary as everybody think that it is. You know what I'm saying? These people, as long as you don't come talking crazy about all this straw man this and straw man that, just talk like a regular person. Put your banking terms on, at play dumb and ask some questions and have them draw you to where you need to be. Enoch, ask them to be quiet, please. Just tell them that I'm recording. So remember, we went over the power of attorney, guys. We went over the power of attorney. I showed you at the bottom where you sign, and letter E puts you as an employee for the taxpayer. Okay, you know what I'm saying? On the form 231, we see that a representative is allowed to receive the return of anybody. Any other representative is allowed to receive the taxpayer's return on the taxpayer's behalf, and it says but the taxpayer. So the taxpayer, the U.S. federal public person, you cannot claim to be that while trying to fix it's a state. You have to separate yourself with the POA. And then you have to understand equity and persona so that you can act in that capacity and really so that you can see so they can see that the trust is being expressed, that it's your business, it's your principle, that you acting on the behalf. You understand? And you got to make it clear as day. Don't be afraid to sound crazy. It's a descendant estate. I know, they just want to make sure that that for sure they want to see if you're just not regurgitating what somebody else said. They want to see if you could really stand on your toes. They want to see if you're going to get frustrated, if you're going to leave, and it's going to be easy for them. You know what I'm saying? You come back another time. When they know that you're persistent, that if it's Monday, you come up Tuesday, and you come up Thursday, and you come every day as nice as pie, and bringing treats and really trying to figure this stuff out, they're going to be like, okay, this woman is not going to give up. You understand? So these people are real people. You know what I'm saying? This is spiritual. This is a spiritual battle. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that you come into, you got to see them as a child of God. You know what I'm saying? Not above them. You know what I'm saying? This is all available to everybody. You know what I'm saying? And it's protected. You know what I'm saying? God put it it's protected. So Enoch, I need you to be quiet. I need you to get out or be quiet because I told you that I'm recording, bro. So we got form 248, which is the power of attorney. That is one of the forms that's going to go. You can even use this form in your administrative process just to scare these folks and let them know that not only are you the principal, are you the agent for the principal and your durable power of attorney, but you're also going to send this with them and let them know that, hey, the IRS has my power of attorney as well. You understand what I'm saying? To endorse, to collect these checks for the undersigned. So, you know what I'm saying? You can go ahead and you can fax this form. You can use an electronic signature, imagine, or digitized image and handwritten signature. You will receive a confirmation email. So it looks like that for this form, particularly the power of attorney, you could fax this form. You understand what I'm saying? Remember, guys, on 1099.com. You can file your 1099 electronically. You'll see, you know what I'm saying? You're doing your administrative process. You know what I'm saying? You're sending in your instructions. You're sending in your tender, your special deposit, your contract, a bond paper, your CFR stamp, whoop-de-whoop. When you go ahead and do that and you're in the middle of the administrative process, make sure you can go ahead and within that 21 days, before you get to that federal lawsuit, that you have filed that 1099-C or that 1099-A, so you can go ahead and let the IRS know what's going on as well. Because when they get that communication from there, and then they got your special tender for deposit, they're gonna look at it and think twice about sending you some mail talking about they can't honor or accept your payment. You know what I'm saying? So the 2848 is just like the 231, shows you where to mail that. The power of attorney can be faxed. You guys can find a fax number, or it can be mailed directly to the IRS. If you're a person, fax is good. Certified mail, registered mail is great. I encourage